Brande Davison here. I am one of us Scrapstorian gals, and today I am here not for a design team, just for my little own self as part of our Scrapstorian crew, and I am here to document these two photos, which are from just the past weekend here in late June in beautiful British Columbia in the Greater Vancouver District. And I am using for the first time P13 Paper Products, which is a paper product scrapbooking company, memory keeping company out of Poland. I had no idea this company existed. They had some product up with one of my design teams, the Shotz, which is an online store in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And one of my crafty besties, Cheryl, who's also a Scrapstorian, ended up getting a few of their bits and bobs from the Scrap Shotz store and was raving about it. And of course, I can't be left out. I definitely have scrapbooker FOMO. And so I popped online and got a bunch of goodies, including what I have here, which is it's the P13, it's the Soulmate collection. So I think intended largely for documenting weddings based on the phrase stickers that I got. But has lots of it that, lots that doesn't have to be just wedding, which I love. So definitely could be used for wedding 100% if you used it literally, but I think there's lots here that can be used for other events. As you can see here, I'm using for just a day on the beach, looking for cool things like, hermit crabs and fish and all that good stuff out at a local beach that we live about 15 minutes from. So with my siblings and my nephew. So what I've done here is I'm sort of looking for in my mind, I was going to put a back piece of paper on, put a piece of paper down and then put another piece of paper over top and sort of rip out the middle as if like the background was coming out of the foreground, if that makes sense. But instead, what I ended up doing is ripping this blue, just fantastic, deep, royal, rich blue from the Soulmate collection paper into sort of an arrowhead shape. So I'm kind of doing it in reverse. Instead of ripping through to show through the paper, I ripped a piece to show on top of the paper. And you'll see what I mean. That sounds a bit abstract, but it'll make sense here. So what I've done is I've literally just ripped that arrow shape, and then I went through with I've got the Tim Holtz like fussy cutting scissors, and they've got a serrated edge on them, and they're super, super, super sharp. And I just open them wide and then just run that edge along wherever I ripped, or even on a flat piece of paper to get a little bit of a distress to make it look really super messy. So that's what I've done there. And then I also just play with the ripped edges so that some of them definitely curl over so you can see the pattern on the other side when you're looking at the side that you have upright, which gives it a cool little bit of dimension here. So I'm just auditioning different papers from the collection. You can see there I just had a moment with the florals, which I have done in another page, which is up on my Instagram account, just to see which I think will make the most sense. And I do end up continuing with this, the wood background here. And it's just got fantastic tones from the darkest of browns to the lightest of browns, and really is a true brown color. It doesn't pull in any sort of orange color it's just great. So you can see here, that's what with my scissors, that's the distressing I'm talking about, just opening them wide and then just running them down the edge of each of the papers. I do have a little distress tool from, I believe mine is from Stampin' Up, which I love, but it gives it a really uniform distress, and I wanted it so that the scissors actually caught some of the pieces and made it a little bit more stressed out. So you can see there on the left-hand side where I'm just playing with now, it actually ripped the paper, which I'm totally comfy with. That was what I was looking for. And then what that does is it gives you exactly this, the opportunity to create a bit of a peekaboo on the side where the rip is, to kind of just peel that rip back. I will staple it down here with my Tim Holtz tiny attacher so you can see the back side of the pattern of the wood, and then you can also see a bit of pattern showing through the actual rip, which is just, it's one of my favorite things. And then I'm just going to glue down the edges of that little piece of paper I snuck behind to peek through, just so it doesn't catch on things when I end up sliding it into the page protector. So it's my tiny little, I don't know, embellishment there on the side, if you will, without having to use die cuts. So I am going to put the blue sort of arrowhead back on there, but first what I'm going to do is I have just grabbed white acrylic paint from my stash. This is like super cheap acrylic paint. We're talking like $1.97 or $2.97 from my local Walmart. I put it on my stamping block. I add a spray or two of my water mister there. I use my paintbrush and I just pick a bunch up and I'm just splattering. I'm not going for anything crazy. I want some big splooshes and I want some little splooshes. I clearly didn't have enough paint there. I had to do it again. And I've picked about a medium-sized brush because I do want a few big blotches put down there. And so I find the bigger the brush, that helps that. You get some of those big messy pieces. If you use a really small paintbrush, you get just a really nice sort of mist, if you will, on the page. But with a bigger brush, you can get quite a bit on the actual brush itself and give it a really good flick. So that's me. I'm going to let those dry. That's just some white background there. A quick baby wipe cleans off my stamping block. Make sure I pick up any of the stray white splatters, and then I am good to continue. So while I give the background paper and I guess I'm just going to call it the blue arrowhead, an opportunity to dry, and it doesn't take long because I have mixed the acrylic with water. I'm just sort of going to lay out how I think my photos are going to look once I put them back on top of the background. And I tend to do this. The green of my mat, I find it actually doesn't distract me. It becomes white noise to me, but it gives me an opportunity to sort of see how I want to use my embellishments and other bits and pieces to focus on the photos without being distracted by the pattern paper. And then when you go and put it all back on the pattern paper, I don't know, it just seems to really work. So is my approach, and definitely is my approach when I am waiting for things to dry, like the white splatters that I put on these pages. So I bought everything I could get my hands on for this collection. So there's these tags. Prior to that, I had the circle tags. So I've picked one circle out, which is in fact a compass. And I did go through those pendant tags, and nothing really fit for what I'm looking for or the shape that I'm working on. But I've got loads of paper from this collection, so I'm not worried. I also have the sticker collection here that you can see I bought 2 of them. I tend to love half like the rest and end up wanting to use the same ones more than once on different layouts. So I've just gotten in the habit of, if the price point is right on stickers or chipboard, to just buy 2, especially when I buy a bunch of paper, because there's nothing worse than having, some paper left from a collection and like that one sad die cut that you couldn't use, and then you've got to try and make a page out of it. So I've just used the phrase stickers here, and what I tend to do when I'm working with stickers is I just take them off the sticker sheet, put them on a scrap piece of paper, and then I fussy cut around the sticker so that basically what I'm doing is turning them into a die cut. So they're not sticky anymore. I can move them around the page to kind of trial it here and there and, over there, without worrying about having to peel it off and slowly, kind of bend or change the shape of that sticker or ruin anything in the background. And then I also like that it gives it a little bit of dimension, that little extra piece of scrap paper behind there. So this is the circles. It's a full page of circles that comes with the Soulmate collection as well. And I'm just going through and picking out the ones that I think make the most sense with this kind of sibling nephew, my Strackenberry's family sort of photo. And then I'm doing the same thing I did with the other ones, just putting them on a scrap piece of paper and cutting around them. It's not a perfect fussy cut because I sort of bend the paper up so that the scrapbook paper is less than the actual sticker size, so I don't have to be so perfect with my cut, but it still makes it so it's not sticky to the page. And then what I found in the sticker is this sort of phrase block that, if you love what you have everything you need, is the saying. And so I'm just going to cut that up as if it's actual small phrase stickers instead of using it as the full block, because I think that will fit my design a little bit better. So it takes me just a little bit to get organized here and cut those pieces, but I really like the look of it. And I think it's a good reminder that, if you get die cuts that have too much white background around them, fussy cut it down. If you want stickers, but you want to, like I did here, take a saying and turn it into phrase stickers, cut it down. If you have stickers that you don't like what the outline is, cut it off. Just don't hesitate to use your scissors to make your stickers and your die cuts and your embellishments exactly what you want them to be. And you might really worry about like, how straight is that cut and does it look good and did I cut that circle perfectly? That seems really important when you're doing the actual fussy cutting, but when you start actually putting it down on your layout, it matters less because it's just all part of making it look unique, making it look homemade, and you really don't, you don't notice that small thing amongst all the other design elements that you're working on. So kind of give yourself permission to do it well, but don't worry about perfect. This is not about perfect. Life is not perfect, and scrapbooking is all about documenting life. So, you know, just put it in perspective. So anyway, my my little soapbox is over. So here I am back to just, this is how I'm thinking the page is going to be organized. You're going to see once I put it actually back onto the paper, I do change it a bit. But in general, the photos stay where they are, the background paper stays where it is. And then I do stick with the same embellishments, just in different locations. I'm going to pick up a little bit more on the circle theme that I had, and some of them just didn't work. A couple of them were floral, which I don't mind, especially with a beach photo. That's fantastic. But I was looking for more like the compass, but the actual kind of the tags, circle die cuts there are come with florals, an owl, and then there's that one compass. So I had to kind of fake it. So I went back to the sticker sheet, pulled off one more that says love in like a typewriter woodblock font, which is what I love about this collection. And then just found a few more clusters. So that said and done, my background paper, which I splattered with white acrylic paint with a touch of water, is dry, as well as is my photo mat, my messy photo mat, if you will. It's been splattered with some white acrylic paint and water, and it's also dry. So I'm just going to bring it back into my layout now and start actually putting my photos on top. So what I tend to do when I have a big piece of paper that needs to be stuck down, or something that, I really committed to the angle that it's on or where it's positioned, I'll often pick up the whole thing and use my tiny attacher to keep it where it's at. One, it keeps it where it's at. That's obviously the most important thing. But two, the tiny attacher just ends up looking a bit like an embellishment. So I always just staple things twice. Once where I need it, and then a tiny little offset so it looks really purposeful, and then that saves things from slipping. And then I just go back through with my fine line bottle of Scotch quick dry glue, which has the fine line bottle has like about a 1-inch little nozzle on it, which allows you to kind of stick it underneath things. So if you've tiny attachered it down, I just use tiny attacher like an action word, but anyway, if you use your tiny attacher to put it down, then you can just sort of peel back the edges and kind of stick the little nozzle underneath and add glue, and then you're all secure. So that's my approach. Anyway, so here I'm at, I've got my pieces back on, and then of course I've got that fabulous cluster I had on my mat, scrapbooking mat in the background. Went to put it back onto the actual page, and I am starting to make tweaks. So I'm going to tweak for a little bit here, where I'm going to move around these phrases, probably more than they need to. They probably end up in the original place, but it was important to me to get the right angle. I didn't want any of them to look perfect, and I definitely didn't want them to look uniform. So that, interesting enough, to make them not look uniform probably takes more work than making them just look uniform. But yeah, so I'll play with these for a while. And I do like that I've got phrase stickers, sort of 2 sections. I know that like the design concept is to do things in threes. I'm going to do that with each of my embellishment clusters, but I'm not gonna like overthink it when it comes to the actual phrase stickers. Because in my mind, the phrase stickers are either part of the design and they're part of that sort of triangular embellishment approach, or they're part of the title, because a couple of them are much bigger than the rest are. So I wasn't too worried about it, and I don't actually think about it when I'm scrapbooking to do like the triangle design, or to use, what's the other one, like quart, pint, glass, I think it's a cup, like using those kind of ideas to make sure you have like mostly this, some of this, and a little bit of this. I don't think about that either, and I probably should, but so far it's working, and I just love it to bits. So maybe not overthinking one thing in my life is kind of the point of scrapbooking. So this is the design that I'm going with. You can see it's going to largely stay exactly where it is. Any adjustment made is going to mostly be because I couldn't get things glued back in exactly where I had them, but this is what it's looking like, and it's so perfect. My nephew there, he's the very white feet at the bottom. He was wearing like these brown khaki cool pants, and it sort of was almost perfect because they bring the navy and the wood grain together so very well. So love that. So you can see I've got those 2 fray stickers, and I used my tiny attacher trick. I knew I wanted one just overlapping the other slightly with a slightly different angle, so I just held them how I want them to glue down, put a couple of tiny attachers on them to hold them together as if it was a design element and done on purpose, and then they're held together and I can glue them down as one piece. So there we are. I am just going to use straight up glue for the back of my photos. Often when I'm gluing this much down, I will use my score tape, but I just didn't want to let go of where I was holding on in case I didn't get back to the right spot. So the glue absolutely works, but yeah, that's my usual go-to, so I thought I would just mention that. So now that my photos are down, I am going to start actually securing the circular elements that I've brought in, the die cuts from either the sticker sheet or the circular die cut or tags collection that comes with this Soulmate piece from the collection from P13. And I like the idea of the circles sort of kind of cascading in like a triangle across the photos that are in the middle. I think it really brings the eye to the photos that we're taking. So that's worked out really, really well. And I will move things around a few times here. So a little bit of torture, but I tend to not take the portions out where I obviously am a little bit indecisive or I'm trying it a couple of ways. I would never want folks to think that this is just like, easy peasy, I knock these out in 20 minutes. I'm on a design team, clearly, I must be able to do this with a superpower way. Then maybe other people, that is not the case. I debate if things look good, I overthink, I move things way too much, and I think it's just good for people to see that. You're not alone. I think we all do it, and I think that's the important story here is, in our community. So I'm moving those circles around just a little bit more. I do decide to bring in the 2 circular tabs that are floral based. I just think they look great on the navy. Florals always look good with a wood pattern, and it just seemed to really work. I wasn't worried about it looking feminine or anything. It just seemed to add a little bit of a touch, which I loved about that. So then I'm going to move things around a little bit, keep my phrase stickers there, take a moment to look through more stuff because that's what you do. And I think I do pull in one more circle element here. Yeah, and I just put, that one is just a very, very navy circle with a white star in it. And I really liked how bright the white looked. So I'm starting to glue down, so we must be coming close to the end here. And I am just going to put all these down, and I either lift them up and put glue on the back and hope they end up in the same spot, especially if I have something to sort of guide my way, or I leave them exactly where they are and just sort of tip up the edge and put enough glue down. People might worry that that's not secure and they're going to fall off. In my experience, they don't. This is great glue. And I also find the edges that aren't fully glued down give just a little bit of dimension, a little bit of something to a layout. So I never worry about, making sure all 4 corners or all of the circular edges of a circle are glued down. I worry about getting the bulk of it, or at least the center of it. So I know it's not going to go anywhere, but you still get a little bit of that, distressed sort of texture to each of your pages. So that's what I'm doing here. I play with these phrases quite a bit, so I apologize. After I cut them up, I realized just how many they are and how small they are, so it took a little while to get it organized, but that is ultimately my layout. I'm looking at it here to be wondering what's that one thing that's missing, can't think of it, so in the interim, I'm going to take my tiny attacher and just add a few staplers in just random places, right? I want the pattern paper to show behind the rip. In a few places, the rip was big enough, but the pattern paper wasn't showing through, so I just glued it down a little bit to show it. And then I grabbed my date stamp. I have just these self-inking date stamps. I bought one about 10 years ago, and I bought another one, I think it was last year, to make sure it covers all the years. So if I'm scrapping back as far as 2004 to, I think it's 2027, I will have my self-inking little stamp. And it's just a cool little stapler font. I use it on everything. There'll be some stills at the end of the photo, at the end of the video for you to see what I mean. And that's pretty much it. I've got my eyelet outlet. They're matte black enamel dots. And I just splattered those around just a little bit. You can't see it too much here, but in person it does show kind of the contrast between the matte enamel dots and the bit of the shine of the white acrylic paint, which I really like. And then my final touch is just a little bit more of my white acrylic paint to do a few splatters that are just smaller. You can see I'm tapping my brush really close to the edge in places where I felt it needed something, including the strip along the top where the blue paper didn't get any splatters before, but above my photo, so it didn't look like I sort of forgot that space. So here's my still photos. Again, this is P13 Paper Products, and this is the Soulmate collection. First time I ever used it. No joke, this layout maybe took me 35 minutes to put together. It was just such an inspiring, beautiful layout. So I hope you are having a wonderful June, and we will see you soon. Thanks for watching.